Hello friends, myself Parmar Chetan, and today I am going to discuss about the cursors, introductions about cursors. Basically this about cursors I will be divided whole video into two part. Today in this first part, here in this first part we just covering a theoretical portion of the cursor, and in second part we will be discuss about the live example of the cursors. Okay. So now what is this actually a PLSQL cursors? So Oracle creates a context area for processing an SQL statement which contains all information about the statements. Means that whenever we fire any type of query, maybe insert, update, delete, select query. So for that query, Oracle use some of the area for processing these things. This contains some of the information about these transactions. This PLSQL allows the programmer to control the context area through the cursor. So that area where actually transaction is doing, and that area is controlling by the programmer, which is known as a cursor. Okay. Then a cursor holds the rows written by the SQL statements. So we can say that when we fire a select query, so select query will provide a single row also, multiple rows also. So this particular one row is written, then it is held by these cursors. The set of rows the cursor holds is referred to as a active set. So how many rows that particular cursor will be holding, it's referred to known as a active set, or some of time it is also known as a active data set. Now processes is a one row per time only. As I earlier said, if suppose table have a 5 records, so first it will be recording a first row, second, third, fourth, fifth. So each and every time it will contain only one record at a time. These cursors can also be named so that they can be referred from another place of the code. So we can say that it is we can also provide a name to a cursor. So in future somewhere if we want to use that cursors, so we can directly call it cursors by name. Okay. Now types of cursor. Basically there are two types of cursor. First is implicit cursor and second one is a explicit cursor. So basically there are two types, implicit cursor and explicit cursors. Now we will be first discuss about the implicit cursor. What is this actually, this implicitly cursor? It is created by default when DML statements like insert, update and delete statements are executed. So we can say that this type of cursor is automatically inbuilt default created. We never create implicit cursor, but where this cursor will be executed when we fire a simple insert query, update query or delete query. That time this DML statements if we fire, so this implicitly cursor will be executed. When select statement is fired, it's called the implicit cursor. So if we like query fire like select star from student, so when we fire this type of query, so ultimately in background this implicitly cursor will be called. These cursors cannot be named and hence they cannot be controlled or refer from another place of this code. As we said earlier, cursors also have a named, but implicitly cursor have not named, and that's why we are not calling this implicitly cursor in our own program. We can refer only to the most recent cursor through the cursor's attributes. So last informations about that cursor we can fetch that referring that cursor's informations. Now what is this explicitly cursor? This cursor should be defined in the declaration section of the PLSQL block, and it is created for select statement that needs to be used in this code. So we can say that now, as I already discussed in a PLSQL block video, the PLSQL block will be divided into four sections: the begin declaration section, begin section, exception section and end section. So in that declaration section you first mention these cursors, explicitly cursors the informations by this select statement which information you want. Okay. Then we can provide a suitable name of the cursors. So that's why we can call these cursors to in our program. So we have to provide suitable name of this cursor. Now, steps to create explicitly cursor. This is the very important things. If you want to create a explicitly cursor on your own way, then you have to follow these steps, which I am discussing here right now. The first step is declaring the cursor. So declare the cursors in the declaration section. So I'm just declaring these cursors about that. Then second is opening a cursor. Now you have to open that cursor in the execution section. So we can performing some operations on the cursors. Then fetching the data from the cursor, which will be fetched data from cursor into PSQL variable or records in the execution section. And last is the closing the cursor. That means the close the cursor. Okay. For example, suppose we have a table named student which contain three fields: roll number, name, and address. And that table contains 5 rows. Okay. Now I want a record from this cursor, sorry, table. Like so, I have to fire query select star from student. If directly if I am firing this query, so indirectly this implicitly cursor will be called. But using this explicitly cursor, if I am call this query, then I have to first declare the cursor with proper name and based on the table name and query. Then I'm opening this cursor in a begin section, then fetching the data of that particular student's table, then closing the cursor. So I have to follow these 4 steps in proper way. Okay. Don't worry if you are not understands or if you have any confusions. I will be give a proper example and again I'm explaining in that time when I'm giving this cursors example. Okay. So you just remember that there is a 4 step is there: declaring a cursor, opening a cursor, fetching the data from the cursor, and closing the cursor. Now, cursor attributes. The first attribute is percentage found. It returns the Boolean result true if the most recent fetch operation fetched a record successfully, else it will be returned false. Means that suppose if I am firing some query like select star from students where city equal to Ankleshwar. Suppose record fetching some data whose students belonging to city Ankleshwar, then this attribute return true. If it's not find any record related to Ankleshwar city, then this percentage found returns false. Okay. Now next is a percentage not found. It is exactly opposite of percentage found. So if records match, it returns true, false, otherwise true. Okay. Then percentage is open. This is very important. Cursor attributes. It returns Boolean result again true if the given cursor is already opened, otherwise it returns false. As we see in a last slide, there are 4 steps: declarations cursor, opening a cursor, that open. After opening the cursor, you can check is perfectly this cursor is opened or not. For that, you have to use this percentage is open attributes. If it is written true, that means your created explicitly cursor is perfectly opened. Otherwise, there is some error or some mistakes in that if it returns false. Okay. And last is a percentage row count. It returns a numerical value. It gives the actual count of records that got affected by the DML activity. So we can say that how many records the cursors will fetch that value. If we want that value, we can be found by percentage row count. Okay. So these are four attributes: percentage found, percentage not found, percentage is open, and percentage row count. You can just remember that these four attributes are common for implicitly cursor also and explicitly cursor also. Okay, now we move a syntax of explicitly cursor. That means if we want to create a explicitly cursor, so we have to follow this proper syntax. So here first declaration section, then cursor keyword, then you can provide the name of the cursor, then is keyword, then your select statement, then your cursor variable declarations. Which type of variables you want, these all variables you are declaring here. Then begin section, then open and your cursor name, which cursor you want to open, that cursor name you have to provide here. Then fetch cursor name into your cursor variable name, this number of lines or your logic, and last your closing this cursor. You remember that we are following a fourth step of explicitly cursor. First declaration, so I am declaring here cursor. Second is I'm opening the cursor, so here opening the cursor. Third is a fetching record, so I am fetching this record here. And last is a closing the cursor, so here I am mentioning the closing and cursor name, and last is a termination by end. So ultimately explicitly cursor will be created. Okay, so this is the way you can create explicitly cursor. In the next video of this part 2, cursor part 2, I am demonstrating the with cursors with example, and again I am giving this proper way of syntax, and based on this syntax we will be creating explicitly cursors 2 3 examples, so you can easily understand what I have to do. Okay, so thank you so much for watching me. If you like this video, you can press the like button. If you subs you can also subscribe my channel. If you want press bell, you can press bell also, so you can get the notifications whenever I am uploading a new video. If you have any doubts or any comment, you can mention the comment in your given below comment box. You can also subscribe and share this video with your friends and colleagues. Okay, so once again thank you so much and have a good day.